seconds for attendees to join, and we're up on YouTube. Thank you, Cedric. Okay, I think we've got a brief lull and people joining. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining ANC 1B's first meeting of 2024. This is our info session portion before we have our official start. I'm really excited to have Sean. Remind me one more time.
No worries. Cuddy High.
Cuddy High, thank you. Sean Cuddy High from Councilmember Robert White's office to talk more about social housing. I know that we've had some community questions about it, so excited to have him here this evening. If you have any questions, please drop it into the Q&A. If you would like to come off of mute, please raise your little Zoom hand and we can take you off of mute. But with that, I'll let you take it away, Sean.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Thank you all, commissioners, for having me. As Chairperson Harris mentioned, I work for Councilmember Robert White as part of his Committee on Housing team. Councilmember White is one of your 5 at-large representatives on the council. And as of January of last year, he became chair of the Committee on Housing. Our committee jurisdiction includes some purely housing regulatory agencies, like the Department of Housing and Community Development. We also have the Human Services portfolio that used to be under the Committee on Human Services, most notably the Department of Human Services, which, in addition to homeless services, covers important food and income benefits. And then we have DCHA, which is the agency that I have a great privilege of helping to keep tabs on. They do a mix of providing public housing and administering our federal and locally funded voucher programs. And then we have a smattering of other smaller district agencies that don't fit neatly within the Housing and Human Services cluster, but that just Councilmember White has had a longstanding interest in, like the Office of Returning Citizens Affairs and the Office of ANCs. So as I said, I take point primarily on DCHA matters, but I also pick up a few other issues that don't fall neatly under a single agency that's within our portfolio, and that includes social housing. And then as Deputy Committee Director, I help keep tabs on the council's unique and confusing procedural requirements to make sure that anything we want to do can make it through the process. I was a healthcare regulatory attorney for 4 years, and then I spent 2 years as the council's lead staffer covering the Office of Human Rights and the Department of General Services when we had a different committee. And now I'm 51 weeks into being a housing policy expert, so I'm very glad to be with this commission tonight. I know you have your jurisdiction has seen a ton of housing growth in recent years, and I'm sure you have a lot of super important perspectives that our committee needs to take into account as we help chart a path for social housing and for housing development subsidies more generally. Right now, our committee is gearing up for the council's annual performance oversight season, where we bring all of our directors in to answer questioning from council members. And then we'll expect the mayor's budget proposal for fiscal year 2025 in, I know there was a date declared, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think we are expecting that budget proposal to drop in mid-March. And frankly, I think this is going to be a really hard year for the district budget. Already in the fiscal year 2024 budget, we saw the mayor and her team needing to make a lot of really hard decisions in their proposed budget. When it arrived at the council, we pretty quickly arrived at a consensus that the human services needs in the district were not adequately addressed in the mayor's fiscal year 2024 budget. And our team, with the support of Chairman Mendelson and I guess all members of the council worked hard to find resources to put it back into the human services portfolio, including a major increase relative to what the mayor had proposed for emergency rental assistance. And we continue to see that strain play out even mid-fiscal year like we are right now. Tuesday, the ERAP portal closed. It's open this year for the first time on a quarterly basis. It opened around I want to say 12:40 on Tuesday. By 6 o'clock, it was closed again, reflecting the fact that the Department of Human Services had gotten 3,500 applications for emergency rental assistance from people who believed they qualified for assistance for folks who are facing imminent eviction and haven't tapped into this program in over a year and need urgent help just to avoid being evicted. So and that's a program that the mayor had proposed to extract $20 million from to put into another human services program, rapid rehousing. The council blocked that, but we're still working to get those $20 million actually pushed out to residents. So it's going to be a tough year. We're trying not to be too pessimistic about big, exciting ideas, and that includes social housing. As a lot of you probably know, Councilmember Louis George, the Ward 4 council member, proposed a bill last year called the Green New Deal for Housing Amendment Act of 2022. And what that bill would do would be to stand up a new agency that would be responsible for acquiring property or using existing district property and providing a mix of housing at different levels of affordability. The idea is that social housing is a model that exists in various forms in different parts of the world, most famously in Austria. And it means a lot of different things coming from different proponents, but most fundamentally, it's government-owned housing that is kept permanently affordable for some of the residents and that provides a home for people with a range of different incomes. So Councilmember Louis George's bill that she first proposed in 2022, I think I said last year, I'm still in 2023 mode. The 2022 version of her bill would set up a new agency within the district government that would build or convert housing that the district would permanently own. It would be operated primarily by private management companies, but the residents would have an opportunity to oust a private management company if it were doing an inadequate job in keeping the building up and meeting their needs. I believe the original proposal was that the new social housing agency, if it existed, would need to make 30% of the units available for people who we refer to as extremely low income, making 30% or less of the median income, which, if I remember correctly, is roughly like $40,000 for a family of four in DC. Another 30% of the housing units in social housing complexes would need to go to moderate income households. And then I believe 40% of the units, the remaining 40%, would be open to market rate tenants. And the idea is that relative to some affordable housing models that we already have in place in the US, including public housing, the rent that streams in from market rate renters would help maintain the buildings, help eliminate the need for such massive public subsidies, and would help avoid patterns that we've seen in U.S. public housing, where you set up these large buildings, you have the government cover most or all of the rent for extremely low income people, but then governments pull back over time. This is something that the federal government has explicitly worked to do. They pull back their investment over time, and the result is large old buildings that most people wouldn't want to live in, but are sort of an option of last resort and are exclusively for people who are experiencing poverty. So social housing is an exciting alternative in theory. It is hard to set up a new agency as part of the district government. It takes a lot of money and time to get it working well. It provides it's a source of some optimism, I would say, for greater accountability to residents. The version of a social housing proposal that Councilmember Lewis George has put forward in her legislation would involve a board that would help set policies for the Social Housing Development Agency, a like an advisory council with people from inside the district government and various related industries, tenant resident councils at each public housing community. And then I think also some sort of body that would collect input from all the different tenant councils. I may be misremembering that part, but basically you want a lot of consistent feedback from residents to make sure that that problems at these buildings aren't lingering and getting worse over time due to disinvestment. And you want people who are in a position of authority over the maintenance of a building who have a long-term stake in keeping it nice, which is not something that public housing residents want their housing to be nice. They don't have a direct voice for the most part in managing it. So we had a hearing a few months ago at which the Department of Housing and Community Development presented testimony on behalf of the mayor. We invited folks who have written about social housing as academics. We had public housing residents. We had advocates from in DC and around DC who have been pushing for the district government to explore this model for some years. And I found the conversation really interesting. It's something that I'm still digesting. I would encourage anybody who's interested to go on our new council hearing management system and go find the video. It was not nearly as long as the 2022 social housing hearing that Councilmember Bonds had to preside over. And we had some really good back and forth, including from nonprofit housing developers who shared some pretty harsh but compelling testimony about how, the advocates for social housing who had been doing some amazing work to get this bill in front of the council and to argue for why it should move forward had pointed to, for example, Montgomery County, Maryland, and laid out how. Oh, thank you, Commissioner, for that link. So Montgomery County, Maryland is one of the few jurisdictions in the US that has been said to implement a version of social housing. There were pilot programs getting started in, I want to say, Washington and California. I think a bill passed recently in a couple other jurisdictions to start laying the groundwork. But MoCo is one of the few places that that advocates would say has started to really get the ball rolling. What we heard from nonprofit housing developers in DC is that if you look at the tax abatements that Montgomery County has to offer for the developers of their new mixed income housing that has been referred to as social housing, and if you look at the debt servicing that they're putting toward this new revolving fund that they set up, which I think is a really cool model. They end up paying, I think we heard that it was about $200,000 per affordable unit, which is not much better than what our Department of Housing and Community Development currently attains with the Housing Production Trust Fund. I think the accountability pieces are really interesting. I think the revolving financing structure that MoCo has put in place deserves a lot more careful attention. I think this is just me as a staffer, not speaking for our whole team. I want to have more conversations with the folks who testified, the folks who do this for a living within our government before we make commitments about what changing up our housing investment model would look like in DC. I also think that the hearing revealed a really strong consensus that the level of investment that we're putting into affordable housing development in DC is not adequate to meet the need, right? Um, the median income for DC residents went up 25% over roughly the last 10 years. The average rent in DC went up about 45% over roughly the last 10 years. If you are a household led by somebody with like a decent paying job, but not like me, not a computer professional, you're going to struggle to find, and you don't have like a voucher or some other source of housing subsidy, you're really going to struggle to find an apartment in DC that doesn't leave you rent burdened, that is paying more than about a third of your income toward housing costs. The Housing Production Trust Fund is an amazing tool. By law, the Department of Housing and Community Development, which runs the consolidated request for proposals by which they push out Housing Production Trust Fund dollars um, for housing development projects. They are required by law to dedicate, I think it's 30% of the units produced in the aggregate from HPTF investments to extremely low income households. They have not, I think they have not hit that target for the entire life of the program. They're getting closer, but it comes at the cost of investing less in moderate income housing. We've been pushing them to get closer to that statutory target. And so the tools that we're using now are just not meeting the need for like large, affordable housing for people with lower incomes. And there is a lot of I guess I'll just say I think the folks who drafted the Green New Deal for Housing bill and worked really hard to build momentum for it have put their finger on a massive problem. I think any real solution to that problem is going to require massive investment of public funds. And whether that looks like a new agency, whether that looks like tweaking the authorities that the housing authority has so that it looks more like the Montgomery County Housing Authority, where it is both a public housing authority and a housing developer. Which of these, avenues of attack is going to get us closer and leveraging our resources better? That's something I'm still evaluating, and our whole team is still evaluating. But I think this has been a really eye-opening conversation, especially for me as somebody who's coming into housing finance policy. And so I guess I'll leave it at that. And commissioners, if you have questions or even just you want to get on a soapbox, I'm all ears. I would really value your input.
Commissioner Electus.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, for coming and talking to us. This is really helpful. And I testified at not this past hearing, but the original one in 2022. So I'm glad it's getting another sort of robust conversation. One thing that a mini soapbox, and then I do have kind of like a question. One of the things that I noticed was sort of a mix of discussion between what density should look like in social housing. And I think, at least my personal opinion is, as getting as much affordable housing overall is sort of like an impetus rather than kind of, looking at these 3-4 story solutions where you lose out on actually a lot of, especially family size units that I think would be really beneficial. I had kind of like two questions for specifically related to this. So I know in Montgomery County, the Housing Opportunities Commission is also a housing finance agency, so they can issue their own bonds. I don't know if that's part of an approach that you all have looked at for, what this could look like. Because DCHFA is a quasi-independent agency. And also, I'm wondering if you all have looked at whether social housing and sort of like building denser social housing could be either not necessarily replacement, but like another option instead of new communities. So for certain DCHA properties, because there's a lot of DCHA properties that are like 2 stories. And then, whether being able to replace those units overall, and then also even add more deeply affordable units, and then add the mixed income aspects on top of it. Those are just kind of like some questions and thoughts. Don't need to delve into it right here, but there's just I watched the whole hearing. It's very interesting.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, well, thank you for tuning in, and thanks for your testimony at the prior hearing. On the density piece, so the council has less of a role in zoning than some other like comparable legislatures. We participate obviously in the comprehensive plan process. But in terms of like setting zoning policy directly, the council has sort of a diminished role. And I think that would I think it would be hard for us to legislate in a social housing bill what like density exemptions should look like specifically for social housing complexes. It's not something that I've personally looked into, and honestly, the zoning commission is under, and the board of zoning are under the committee of the whole at the council. So it's an area that I need to get smarter on. If you have seen proposals to that are like DC specific that you think could be worked into a social housing bill, I would love to take a closer look at that.
Yep, thank you. And I know the zoning is separate in the way it works. I meant more sort of like rhetorically, at least in sort of when you're setting out the goals of what you would think it would be. I think that just sort of like as a helpful marker.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not inherently opposed to using large plots to build big dense housing buildings. We certainly need a great volume of new housing in DC to help relieve the market pressures that make affordable housing so scarce. I do think though that this is something that we've heard a lot in the just like green building context as well, that a significant portion of the district's land holdings are these little scattered plots that I think a lot of them are single family or like smaller multifamily buildings. And I wouldn't want to rule out the possibility of subjecting those land holdings to like this participatory governance model, to trying to like take a smattering of row houses and operate them collectively as a social housing community. So in theory, yeah, I think density on big plots sounds great. I don't know whether a social housing bill is necessary for that. But if the district is using its limited real property holdings to produce large volumes of housing, I would love for the district government to try out the social housing model at some of those sites.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I have a question that's not about social housing in particular, but about housing production in general. I was reviewing some stuff recently. I know that the mayor set a few years ago a target for 36,000, I believe, new or renovated homes in by 2025 or so. It sounds like the mayor is that DC is more or less on line for that target, including I think 12,000 of those were supposed to be new or newly affordable homes. But parts of the city seem to be extremely good at meeting those targets, and parts seem to be extremely bad at meeting those targets. I think some of I'm going by recollection right now, so please, people who are paying attention, fact check me on this. But I think Mid-City, which covers, among other things, Columbia Heights, U Street, Shaw, and a couple of other areas, has been doing above its target. And far southeast and southwest has really been going above its target. Whereas parts of the city, such as Upper Northwest, Rock Creek West, and Capitol Hill have been, I think most of them were below 20% of their target. One of them, I think, was at less than 4% of their target for new housing. is this, I guess, sort of a silly question, is this something that would fall under the committee that you are staff on? And if so, what sorts of stuff, what what um what might the council do to work either with the executive agencies or alongside or in parallel with them to encourage housing availability in all parts of our city, including high income and high opportunity areas like the areas I named?
Yeah, so it is sort of within our portfolio in that the Housing Production Trust Fund is administered by one of the agencies we oversee, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and DHCD has, you know, the power to try and use those housing subsidy dollars to push for housing development in a way that meets the mayor's, you know, sort of geographic distribution goals. Higher opportunity neighborhoods desperately need more housing development. They are also, in general, harder to buy land in. It's much pricier. They require higher operating subsidies for the rents that have to be paid once a building is operational. So that's not an answer to your question of what can we do. I do think it is illustrative of some of the dynamics that are hard to overcome just by like throwing money at the problem, right? Because the same few $1 million can have a much greater impact in a neighborhood where you might already have built a great deal of affordable housing, right?
Commissioner Trindade Dorano.
Thanks for the presentation and for taking questions. I'm interested if you could speak maybe to user experience, and I don't know if it's too early to ask that question, but I have to imagine you've already walked that through. You know, we kind of famously have seen statistics like a quarter of the city's public housing units are available, but there's a list, you know, waiting list that's years long, and so you know, there's an administrative disconnect, let's say. So how do you envision a change like this is going to make, I guess, what is the difference for the user experience in terms of applying, finding a unit, being matched to a property, so that they're not mired in the same bureaucratic problems that we've seen so far? Is it the fact of having tenant boards? Are they involved in selection and placement? What's the mechanism that's going to make it a smoother process?
I think tenant boards are, I think I think social housing proponents would probably say that tenant boards are a significant part of that mechanism. I do want to clarify. Roughly a quarter of our public housing units are unoccupied, but for the most part, that's because they are in such poor condition that they can't be safely inhabited. So I think it's less of a waiting list management problem and more of a building maintenance problem for the most part. So to the extent that that's the case, I think the user experience would be improved somewhat with more direct accountability to residents. Right now, there are resident councils. There's one at every public housing community. They are elected by the residents. They have periodic meetings with DCHA's Property Management and Operations Division. And they participate in a citywide advisory board that's supposed to get notice of every DCHA board meeting. Even with all of those sort of flow ups and flow downs of input between DCHA management and public housing residents, we still have the buildings in the conditions that they're in, right? But I do think the mechanism that Councilmember Lewis George put forward, where the residents of a particular social housing development would have the right to initiate the replacement of their management company, would hopefully make those management companies a little bit more responsive, and then I think the cross subsidy piece is conceptualized as something that would improve the user experience for social housing residents relative to public housing residents as well. So you've a social housing program is sustained by, rent contributions that are really meaningful to the household, up to like 30% of the household's income. But relative to the cost of maintaining these buildings, is just so far from adequate. The federal government used to supply the rest. The local government is finding ourselves in the position of needing to supply a huge chunk of that now. And then you have these redevelopment programs for public housing that are trying to like move on to a different model, actually with a lot of cross subsidization through like mixed income redevelopments of public housing. All that to say, I think having people with a mix of incomes living in these complexes theoretically would both amplify the needs of the residents. You've got I don't think we would expect that the extremely low income residents of a social housing community would live in way worse units than they would have access to all the same units, right? They would be placed in an income blind way. And so, to the extent that a problem is affecting the entire building, you have people with higher incomes who might have more free time, more familiarity with more like, personal connections to government
Social
actors.
capital, sure.
Yeah. Advocating for repair of buildings, and you also have their higher rent payments flowing in steadily for ongoing
Right.
maintenance of these
And it's a
buildings.
decentralized source of funding, so to speak.
Great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Let's, Commissioner Handerhan, let's quickly ask your question, and then Sean, if you can drop your information into the chat so then we can share it with the community. If there are any other questions that come up, I just want to be mindful of our time here.
Absolutely.
I'm really so hi Sean. My name is Larry. I'm really interested in continuing this conversation. I think you've touched on a lot of really critical things that we don't have time to talk through. The commissioners answered some of my questions, but I think from maybe like for folks on the line more broadly, maybe if you could just end with like a really quick, the difference between social housing and public housing as articulated in the DC bill. I think that would be really helpful, touching on access, maintenance, whatever makes the most sense, but just like quick and dirty, what is the philosophical approach that differentiates social housing from public housing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest difference is that social housing would be designed to be permanently affordable for people with a range of incomes. In the 2022 version of the bill, it's 30% extremely low income, 30% moderate income, 40% market rate, to the extent feasible, maybe. In the 2023 version of the bill, there's less discretion to deviate from that precise income mix. There are pros and cons to either approach, but the short version of the difference from public housing is that it is permanently open to a mix of people with a mix of incomes, which helps with cross subsidization, and in one form or another, residents' input helps govern the management of these buildings.
Great.
Looking forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us and giving us a lot more information about kind of what's ahead and getting into the details. I know, we have had a couple of public parcels in ANC 1B come up. The Reeves Center, we have one at 1617 U Street. So this has been, I think, top of mind for the community as a potential idea, although it seems a little bit farther down the pipeline, but really glad to have you, and thank you so much for your time and joining us.
Of course. Thanks for the invitation.
Great. And also, if you can drop your information into the chat, I see it. Thank you. And we will share it with the community. So thank you. All right. And I do see that there is a question in the Q&A, but I don't think that was relevant to social housing. So when we get to public safety and community engagement, I'll field the question to you, Commissioner Fields. I just wanted to let everyone know that I did see that in there. So with that, this is again ANC 1B's monthly meeting. It is January 2024. I cannot believe it. Happy New Year, everyone. We are calling this meeting at 7:08 p.m. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Handerhan.
Present.
Commissioner Holohan.
Present.
Commissioner Sycamore.
Here.
Commissioner Lakatos.
Present.
Commissioner Kensick.
Present.
Commissioner Trinjaji Daramo.
Present.
Commissioner Fields.
Present.
Commissioner Harris.
Present.
And Commissioner Jones present. Madam Chair, with 9 out of 9 commissioners present, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Commissioners, before you have an agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the January agenda?
I move to approve the January agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. We also have a consent agenda with December draft meeting minutes and a 2-minute comment time, 1 comment per speaker per topic for commissioners and community members. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. And now on to administrative. So normally that's at the bottom, but because it is a new year, we have the election of our 2024 ANC 1B officers. We will go by each position. So first is chairperson. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate.
Go ahead, Commissioner Andrea.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Sable Harris for chair.
Thank you, and I accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations? Commissioner Sycamore.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Daramo.
Commissioner Daramo, do you accept the nomination?
I'm flattered by it. Thank you to my colleague, but no, that's all right.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Commissioner Sycamore.
I'll nominate Commissioner Alan Kensick.
Commissioner Kensick, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept with pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, I feel like this is a little odd. I don't know if I can lead, I guess, the vote in this. I'm looking to you for advice on that.
Madam Chair, if it's the consent of the commission, I can lead in your stead.
Great.
If anybody, do any other commissioners have an objection to that? Okay, thank you. We'll go in the order of those nominated. Again, the nominations are we're voting for chair for the 24 term of ANC 1B. The nominees are Commissioner Sable Harris and Commissioner Alan Kensick. All of those will be voting in order. All of those who who vote for Commissioner Harris for chair, please raise your hand. And all those who are for Commissioner Kensick for chair, please raise your hand. By a vote of 6-2, Commissioner Harris is reelected as chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Okay, now on to vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'm going to nominate Vice Chair Handerhan, as I think he's done an amazing job, and I'd like to see him continue on with his efforts.
Are there, Commissioner Handerhan, do you accept the nomination?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Kunzik. I'm gratefully accept.
Commissioner Handerhan, I think you broke up a little bit, but you said yes. I got that.
Yeah,
Are there any other nominations? Well, with that, since there are no further nominations and there's only one, Commissioner Handerhan, congratulations. You are elected as Vice Chair for 2024.
Thank you.
Now on to Treasurer. Are there any nominations for Treasurer?
I'd like to nominate Treasurer Lakatos, please.
I accept the nomination.
Great. Are there any other nominations? Excellent. Okay, with that, Commissioner Lakatos, congratulations. You are Treasurer for 2024. Now on to Secretary. Are there any nominations for Secretary? Commissioner Jones.
Madam Chair, I nominate Commissioner Miguel Trindade de Rabo for Secretary for the 2024 term.
Commissioner Trindade de Ramo, do you accept?
Only on the condition that Commissioner Jones will be in charge of saying my name at every future meeting, please.
I'll keep practicing. Thank you.
He does an excellent job. I think probably better than myself. Are there any other nominations? Great. With that, Commissioner Trindade de Ramo, you are elected as Secretary for 2024. Excellent. So with that, that is our, we have our 2024 ANC 1B officers. Thank you so much to all of our officers for serving. It is not easy. And thank you to Commissioner Jones for leading as Secretary for the last year. But excited to see the future with our new Secretary. Also, just as a note as well, so no one is shocked, Commissioner Jones and the rest of the officers that were elected prior will still be leading until the meeting has ended. So Commissioner Jones, you are still Secretary until the meeting has ended. Okay. I'm going to actually pass it to Commissioner Handerhan to talk a little bit more about the next item, the 2-week period for our chairs for each committee.
Sure. Thank you so much, chairs. So our our standing operating procedures, which you can find on our website, I also just dropped the link in the chat, dictate how committee chairs are supposed to be selected. This is something we have adhered to in different ways in the past, but we'd like to really make sure we're being as consistent with our SOPs and as transparent as possible in order to recruit committee chairs for 2024. So what the SOPs say is that upon election of the Commissioners' Executive Committee at the January meeting, the commission chairs will be, the process for commission chairs will be immediately announced and advertised a 2-week period that we will accept applications for the chair of each committee. The chair of each committee, historically, we have done commissioner chairs, which is something we're interested in continuing, but the chair of each committee can actually be open to any commissioner or any resident of the commission area. So we are actively seeking chairs and co-chairs, both from commissioners and from the community. There'll be a 2-week application deadline, which will start on Monday. I'll drop this in the chat in a second. And it will close 2 weeks after that. And then it will be shared with all the commissioners, and we'll get a vote on committee chairs at our February meeting. This means that any January meetings will be conducted by the current chairs, and that will transition in February. So again, this is kind of the first time we have done this process, but it is one that is familiar to other ANCs, and we're going to be stealing their commission form. Everything's going to be posted on our website in time for the Monday, January 8th application period opening. And again, it will close on Monday, January 22nd. I'm putting this all in the chat. You can reach out to me if you have any questions. The application will include descriptions of all the committees, but you can also see those on our website right now if you're interested. And again, we just really would encourage all the commissioners and any members of 1B who are interested in this volunteer opportunity to raise their hand. Happy to take any questions if folks have them.
I'm not seeing any questions, but again, Commissioner Handerhan did put his information in the chat. You also can reach out to any of the commissioners here and the current committee chairs as well too about just the typical matters that they handle. If commissioners, you have questions about that, if you're interested in another committee, same thing for community members. We're always looking for committee members. So really would strongly encourage you to reach out because we do handle a lot of our commission's business on kind of our committees. Thank you, Commissioner Handerhan. So the next item is our participation in the ANC Security Fund. It's for related fees up to $100 and the authorization for Commissioner Lakatos to complete all related paperwork. Do we have a motion to approve ANC 1B's participation in the ANC Security Fund?
I move that the ANC 1B participate in the ANC Security Fund up to $100 and authorizing the treasurer to complete all necessary paperwork.
We have a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, reports and action items. Are there any financial reports or updates, Commissioner Lakatos?
There is no QFR to vote on today. The OANC finally, after 1 year of promising it, has a new quarterly financial report software that they're going to get me onboarded to. So hopefully the process will be easier. So we'll be voting on the Q1 FY24 QFR, which is the last 3 months of last year, at the next meeting in February.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Next, committee's alcohol beverage regulation. Commissioner Holohan.
Nothing to report. The committee did not meet last month. So really the only thing is that our next meeting is Wednesday, January 17th via Zoom at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Public safety and community engagement, Commissioner Fields.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I have a quick question for Commissioner Holohan.
Sure. Sorry.
Commissioner Holohan, I got a message recently from a constituent in our area who had concerns about new licensing that's newly available for medical marijuana dispensaries and other cannabis dispensaries. Could you confirm, is the ABR committee going to be handling those sorts of licenses and protest opportunities as well?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for asking that question. We have received, I think, a couple placards with that. I think there was one, Commissioner Holohan, that was in your SMD that came in during the holidays. So yes, I think the ABR will be handling that. And community members, if you have any questions related to that, please ask us. We will likely have to go and ask APCA because this is a very new process for us. But from what I've been told, it will follow a similar procedure to liquor licenses. So not entirely new, but a little bit. So we will be experiencing it all together. Okay. Are there any other questions? Sorry, I'm looking at my other screen, so switching my eyes here. Okay, public safety and community engagement, Commissioner Fields.
All right. Can I get screen sharing abilities?
Cedric, if you can click the green button at the bottom, I think the little caret, and then you should be able to allow panelists to share their screens.
All right.
There we go.
Thank you. So this is just our presentation, just going over a couple of things that we have on the agenda. The first one is sponsorship updates. We haven't gotten any applications in a long time, so I wanted to put our link in the chat again to our Microsoft Forms, and then just request that Cedric add it to the website so that people who are interested in applying for sponsorships can do so, and we can review them at upcoming public safety and community engagement meetings, regardless of if there's a new chair or not. Just want to make sure that the community has access to those funds in that process. In addition to that, I also wanted to review and discuss the neighborhood engagement and marketing intern. There's definitely some uses and benefits for her with the Public Safety and Community Engagement Committee. I wanted to know if we are able to go ahead and move forward with the vote to combine those roles and those salaries and accept her in that position so that we can start utilizing her. So I move that we combine the neighborhood engagement and marketing intern position and hire Asha Taylor.
So I apologize. We should have probably updated. We had already previously voted on this a couple of years ago, and then it was already in our budget. So a vote isn't necessary. We haven't extended the offer to her yet, but we will. And obviously it's pending if she accepts.
Okay. Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing her accept. And definitely one thing that I wanted to highlight as something that I wanted to do is just to revamp the Wake Up with ANC 1B, the podcast YouTube that was sort of started, and hopefully we can continue that. I'd love to bring on local elected officials and just different government agencies to record a video once a month that we post to that account and just give people access to asking questions or just gaining more knowledge about what's going on in their community. So hopefully once she's hired, we can get started with that. The community engagement piece of the committee has also been discussing the Cardozo community engagement aspect and piece. We know that a lot of the teens and students that go there have been committing crimes, and so it's been our plan to meet with the principal and the student resource officer to just sort of discuss a plan for mentorship, event planning, professional development, which hopefully will produce crime reduction, and maybe we can get them involved in some advocacy. So we discussed that at our last meeting. And then lastly, I just have our crime statistics from the past 30 days. So there's only been one homicide, and as you guys can see on the map, it happened right off Florida Ave. Most of the crimes in this area were theft. Some were theft of auto. And then as you guys can see here, you know, there's the numbers. So we had 2 assault with dangerous weapons, 11 robberies, 4 burglaries, 46 thefts, 55 thefts of auto, 17 motor vehicle thefts, and then 1 arson, which is pretty scary. But that's our crime statistics for the past 30 days. I'm glad to see that homicide is only at 1. And lastly, we have upcoming events. So those in the community that have Commissioner Henderson.
If I could just really quickly mention, so thank you, Commissioner Fields. The homicide was in my SMD 1B01 LaJoy Park. In case folks are not on the LaJoy Park listserv, just want people to know that we're going to host a LaJoy Park specific community public safety meeting that addresses several instances of gun violence in the past week and a half, including that homicide. We just got the date, so it's going to be next Wednesday at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I definitely want to come to that, and I hope the people in the community that are in the surrounding areas are able to come as well too. But just on a more positive note, the 3D CAC, so the Citizens Advisory Council, will be hosting an MLK Day of Service talent showcase for people who are ages 8 to 19. So if you have any children or you know any high school age, elementary school age students, it would be great to get them involved. They're accepting artwork, they're doing an oratory contest, and then they're also doing spoken word. So if you guys are interested in being a part of that, you can email a video of whatever type of art form you'll be presenting to 3dcacdc@gmail.com. And then the official presentation will be on January 13th from 1 to 3 p.m., I believe, on site at the police station. So just wanted to share that. Those are all of our updates. Our next meeting will be January 9th at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Commissioner Fields, there are 2 questions in the Q&A, I think, if you want to go ahead and answer them, and Commissioner Kinsick will get to you after that.
Okay. Yes, I saw the first question about the box convenience store. and the liquor store as well too, and the loitering outside. And I think, it's just a difficult issue to address, specifically because I think the owners of both of those stores are sort of complicit with the crowd that hangs in front of there. I think some people also might work inside of the stores, and so they step outside and maybe their friends are there while they're on break. I think it would be a great opportunity for us to reach out as public safety and community engagement to ask that they clean the front of their stores more often and help prevent trash flow on the sidewalk and the street. It's unfortunate that we lost the Gibson and Owl Room, but I do think that those business owners are sort of helping to cultivate that environment. So it's just, I think, about working and developing a better relationship with them to ensure that they're more able to make it a better place for us all that live in this community. I see the next question. I definitely think it could include parishes in the community and different community organizations, faith leaders as well too. We want to have everyone on just to make sure people have access to information about how to better themselves and just gain more information about what's going on in ANC 1B. So if you are interested, I would welcome you to email me. I'll drop my email in the chat. And then Commissioner Kinsick, I know you had something to say as well too. You're good. Okay.
Okay. I will, so both Box and Bestway are in my SMD. So I know that Bestway does try to clean their front, and I will talk with the owner to make sure that it is upkept or kept clean. I will also talk with Box as well too. To Commissioner Fields' point, I think it's important that we try to foster that kind of community engagement versus kind of going into kind of the opposite way of, thinking that there might be something nefarious going on, which we don't know. I mean, there might be, but I will certainly reach out to those owners and see. I do also know that Lieutenant, but now not Lieutenant, Monahan did mention that MPD would reach out, but there are no anti-loitering laws in DC. So, I think what we need to do is better just community engagement. So I will certainly approach the owners about kind of just general upkeep, and then we can go from there. I will also say that, I want to advise commissioners on maybe avoiding kind of blanket statements. I think it's great that we're engaging with students at Cardozo, but I don't think there are many students who are participating kind of in crime. So I would caution us to, remember that Cardozo is a good high school, and I do know that, there have been some pain points. So let's just be mindful of those blanket statements. Commissioner Kinsick.
Yeah, I want to just say that I don't believe Commissioner Fields, as stated, it sounded like that. We actually discussed on the occasion of possibly looking to put the Cardoza lights on later at night to help with the cars that get broken into on a regular on Florida Avenue there between 13th and 12th Street, or is it 12th and 11th, whatever it is, 11th and 12th. And I think that it's worked very well at Banneker, having the lights staying on till 4 a.m. And I think this will also add to it. So I don't know if it was much as her saying that it's, the Cardoza's a crime school. It's more so we just want to get people engaged, people in the environment to be working with us. And I think that will make the area better in general. Thank you.
Sure. And I'm just saying, please avoid blanket statements for all of commissioners. Moving on, zoning preservation and development, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. Give me one moment.
Sorry, I also saw Commissioner Sycamore's hand. Did you have something you wanted to add? Okay, you're good.
It's going to take me a minute to pull things up, so please feel free to take that time. Okay, so the first item that we have today, the ZPD committee, when we met in December, discussed two items. The first is this item on 1332 T Street Northwest. There are two questions at hand. This is related to the same proposed construction. The applicant is proposing a second floor addition to an existing rear detached garage. The applicant noted that the existing garage was approved under a variance because the rear alley width is narrower than usual. Other adjacent garages, they pointed out, have a second story as well, and they have a similar setback. So they're hoping that they can, the variance that they're seeking is to continue to have the alley be smaller than usual. So that's the main variance that they're seeking. The applicant is seeking to add a second story to the existing garage. The main purpose of the second story would be a relaxation area. It would have a roof and be fully enclosed and have electricity and water and sewer, but it would not be able to be used as a separate living space. That is, it would not and cannot be used as an accessory dwelling unit or ADU. The applicant confirmed that neighbors are aware of the owner's plans, that they have no concerns with them. The ZPD committee members had questions about how the relevant DC government authorities might try to interpret this because it is an unusual request. However, none of us had any concern with the actual goal of the project, that is the addition as proposed. And additionally, this is located, in Commissioner Harris, in the district that Commissioner Harris is elected out of. And she also noted that she had no concerns about the project. The ZPD committee made two separate motions, and I will be making them again in a moment once everyone has had a chance to speak. The first motion was that the full ANC support the project for historic preservation review. And the second was that the ZPD committee support the project at 1332 T Street Northwest with respect to zoning and any zoning variations needed. Before I make any motions, I want to give colleagues on the commission an opportunity to speak to this if needed, or members of the community.
Commissioner Kinsick.
Were there any concerns with either? Any raised concerns with either?
No. These votes passed 3-0. There were no concerns about the impact on the neighbors, and again, the neighbors are. The applicant affirmed that the neighbors are aware of and did not raise any concerns.
Commissioner Sycamore, can you please raise your Zoom hand so then I can see you move to the top of the screen?
Sure, not a problem. Just a quick question. So if we support the Historic Preservation Review Board, if they find any problems, will this delay their project?
Yes. So my understanding of the process is that we would be one of several groups saying we do or we do not think that this is historically compatible, but it is ultimately not up to us. It's up to the Historic Preservation Review Board to find it compatible, to find the proposed plan compatible with the historic nature of the area, which, let me confirm, which this is in the Greater U Street Historic District. So it is possible that despite our recommendation that they find it compatible, that they will not find it compatible. And sorry, to answer the second part of your question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If they find it not compatible, then the applicant would need to come back with a new plan that hopefully would be compatible.
Okay, so
the compatibility is related to just like the concept and design, not so much like the variance of the building itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So sorry. There's two questions at hand, which is a zoning variance okay? That's the one question, which the ZPD committee says we don't have a problem with the zoning variance being proposed. The second question is it historically compatible? And again, the ZPD says we think it's historically. The ZPD committee says we think it's historically compatible.
So voting in favor of means okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
But voting in favor would mean not putting any impediments in the way of this applicant's application.
And it's two separate boards. So HPRB, again, will review like the materials used, the concept and design, and then the zoning variance is then reviewed in front of BZA. So the Board of Zoning Adjustment. So it's two kind of things. And sometimes depending on the development, they would go, so it would go in front of HPRB and then it would go in front of ZPD, or not ZPD, BZA. It seems like nothing has, like, there's no date for either, there's no case number assigned. But for the most part, because this is like an alley unit, I am a little surprised that it's going in front of HPRB, because typically, as long as you can't see it from the street, it wouldn't go in front of HPRB. But I guess because it's like an alley side, that's where it's going in front of HPRB.
Yes, I can't speak to the applicant, but Chair Harris, I can provide a little bit of context on that. We have had a case recently where we've had at least 2 cases recently where people have wanted to make changes to the back of their homes that they thought were not visible to this from the street. But then the HPRB comes back and says, actually, from this one angle on this one day, when it's winter and the leaves aren't covering it up, you can see the corner of this thing. And so you need to go back and get historic preservation. So even if they probably don't need it in this case, I'm glad the applicant is asking for it now.
Yeah, I think it's fine. You can also join both of these as one motion, so you don't have to make 2 separate motions if you feel.
Sure. For various reasons, the members of the ZBD committee wanted to do it as 2. So I'll just do it as 2 if it's all right with everybody.
That's fine.
All right. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that ANC 1B support the project at 1332 T Street Northwest at the Historic Preservation Review Board, as we think it is compatible with the historic nature of the historic character of the neighborhood.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have a motion. I move that the full ANC, the ANC 1B support the proposed project at 1332 T Street Northwest with respect to zoning regarding the proposed changes to the concept and massing to alter the existing accessory building.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have item number 2 in the ZPD committee. This is a property at 1311 S Street Northwest. It is also located in the Greater U Street Historic District. It is also located in Single Member District 1B08, out of which Commissioner Sable Harris is elected. The applicant had come to us before. They were actually one of the ones who I mentioned had the historic preservation thing, where from one particular angle it is visible. But now they're coming before us asking for BZA zoning special exemption to allow for an accessory dwelling unit. The context here is that they want to put an accessory dwelling unit on top of an existing garage. I believe the existing garage will be renovated, and then and on top of it, there will be an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant notes that the alley behind that part of S Street Northwest has at least 5 or 6 ADUs already. So this is already in line with the actual use of this area. And as we heard today, there is a shortage of housing in our city, and one ADU will allow one more person or family to live here. It's not much, but it matters a lot for one person. ZPD and ANC 1B, like I said, had previously found the proposed plan to be compatible with the historic district. There was some question again about process in that the RF1 zoning, which does. There was some question about whether an ADU even needs a special exemption or even can have one from an administrative point of view. But the ZPD committee agreed that that was something best left up to the Board of Zoning Administration. And we are not and that in our capacity as representatives of the neighborhood, the ZPD committee members found no reason to oppose the proposed ADU. And so for that reason, the ZPD committee voted unanimously to recommend that ANC 1B support the request for a special exemption to allow an ADU in the RF1 zone at 1311 S Street Northwest while meeting all other zoning requirements for the zone.
Do any commissioners have any questions on this? We do have the contact in the attendees. So I don't know, Julian Hunt, if you want to say anything quickly. Cedric, if you can go ahead and take Julian Hunt off of mute. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I did think, I've been here from the beginning, so I did think that the presentation by Sean Kadihi, whatever his name is, really.
Cutting high. That's good. You corrected me twice. So it's cutting high.
Was germane to the debate, because we, as architects, see the innovation of the ADU as a kind of sleeper innovation that really could have a much bigger impact than this kind of tiny little adjustment. And this was kind of introduced by the revision to the comprehensive plan, and it just hasn't been quite updated in the zoning codes yet. So we feel like we are on the cusp of a significant change and innovation, a positive innovation. So the ADU is really an important little tiny innovation, and we think this is entirely appropriate. I can make our presentation if you want.
I don't think we need you to.
It's just, I don't see this as terribly controversial.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you for chiming in, and I'm glad you found the presentation helpful. I think I agree with you. I think some of these smaller, maybe sleeper hits are things that we also need kind of at the same time while we do work towards the larger kind of more, I guess, groundbreaking developments. Do commissioners have any questions for Julian Hunt? Great. Well, thank you for attending tonight. Commissioner Jones, do you have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that ANC 1B support the request for special exemption to allow an ADU in an RF1 zone at 1311 S Street Northwest while meeting all other zoning requirements for the zone.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just before I pass along to the next presenter, just two notes. First off, the next meeting of the ZPD committee will be on Tuesday, January 16th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. You can find the link for that on the website. We usually meet Mondays. Monday, the 15th is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So we will not be meeting that day. We will be meeting on Tuesday, the 16th. Additionally, I want to preview two items that will be on the agenda. First off, we will have representatives from Howard University joining the January meeting of the ZPD committee. They will talk primarily about the I believe Wonder Plaza and the Howard University Hospital plans. But we expect to hit him with a couple other questions as well. So if you have any questions related to Howard University development and potential development and upkeep of properties in ANC 1B and its immediate surroundings, please feel free to join the ZPD committee meeting on Tuesday, January 16th. The second item is that we will be discussing proposed changes to reduce, or I believe maybe entirely eliminate, government mandated parking minimums for certain properties in DC. I believe Commissioner Hanahan, thank you for again pointing that out to us. I believe this would be only for certain public housing or affordable housing options. But that is something that we will talk about because it is a zoning change that would affect not only our neighborhoods, but also the entire city. So those are, again, two of the items that we know we will be talking about at our next meeting on Tuesday, January 16th, 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Thank you.
A quick question for you, and Commissioner Kinsick, I see your hand. Have you reached out to anyone in ANC 1E to also be a part of the discussion? Because Howard does fall in ANC 1E now.
My understanding is that, thank you, Jay Harris. That's a good question. My understanding is that they have been talking with 1E in parallel and have already had some of this discussion that they'll be having with us, I believe in November or so.
Okay, I would still encourage you to reach out to them, and I'm happy to reach out to kind of their chair just so that they're looped into the conversation, and then any other questions that they may have had come up since they met last.
Great.
Commissioner Kinsick.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chair. And we do actually, Howard is still in part N1B, the service center, so they are still included in 1B. I just wanted to thank Secretary Jones for your hard work, your dedication. You've been a breath of fresh air to 1B in general. In the 2 years that I've been a commissioner, it's just really, it's amazing to see just from one end to the next. So bravo, Commissioner Duramo. You have definitely tough shoes to fill, but I'm looking to having to work with you more, Secretary Jones. You're great, and I look forward to working with Secretary Duramo as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words.
Okay. Economic Development, Commissioner Hanahan.
Sure. Thanks, Chair Harris. We didn't have a meeting in December, so there's nothing to vote on, but did want to provide a couple updates, including the latest on 1617 U Street. Before I did that, I wanted to give Lindsay Hicks an opportunity to give any updates from U Street, Main Street. So kind of putting you on the spot, Lindsay, but wanted you to if you have an update you want to share, you can raise your hand and we can promote you to panelists so that you can provide that update.
There you go. You should be able to take yourself off of mute. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have an update from U Street, Main Streets.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you, Commissioner Hanahan, for inviting me to speak. I've been in vacation mode. I'm technically still in vacation, but wanted to make sure I hopped in on this meeting. Nothing too much to update. We had a successful holiday market for the U Street and 14th Street sidewalk sale that we hosted in December of last year. We had great feedback from the vendors and small business owners. So we're looking forward to making that an annual event. And then upcoming on January 18th, we will have the DC Mayor for Nightlife, Salaz Sapari, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He will come and speak with our some of our nightlife business owners on January 18th. Just kind of like an open format for business owners to discuss some of the concerns they have with safety and other issues for the area. So those are the just a couple of updates that we have for the U Street, Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Want to just make sure everyone was aware that there is an upcoming Zoning Commission public hearing on 1617 U Street and the proposed rezoning that would come through the map amendment. It is going to be January 8th at 4 p.m. I'm dropping the link for the public notice in the chat, so you should all see that in a second. Folks may have remembered that this was supposed to be around Thanksgiving time. There was a continuance due to a deficiency in the hearing notice, so this is a chance for what was supposed to happen in November to happen on Monday. They also reserved a second slot in case they can't finish their business on the 8th. So the 18th is the overflow day. As a reminder, this is specifically concerning an upzoning proposal from MU4 to MU10 at the FEMS and police station site at the far, western portion of ANC 1B. This is a very big deal. This is an early step in the process, but it's a really important opportunity for your voice to be heard. I would also just reiterate that DemPed, who is kind of driving this in partnership with, the deputy mayor for Planning and Economic Development, trying to be better about acronyms, and the Office of Zoning, who are driving this proposal to upzone the site, did actually change their proposal to include some set-asides from the immediate townhouses that this property abuts in response to public engagement. That is not, I'm not saying that's like end all be all, but I did want to just note that that is a example of how showing up to these meetings and providing your input does actually change policymakers' minds. I'll pause there for any questions or comments from commissioners.
One quick correction. So it was an Office of Zoning, it was Office of Planning. And it's going in front of just like.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
But Commissioner Handerhan is absolutely right in terms of, I think, Office of Planning would have incorporated kind of the setbacks and things for V Street if it wasn't for the community kind of raising concerns specifically around kind of that area. So thank you for community members for raising those concerns. I believe there are going to be, I think they're trying to, I'm forgetting the exact technical language. They are trying to upzone it, a new map amendment. And then I think it's going to also be I believe it might be an amendment for the setbacks as well too. So then that stays, I think, more permanent. Again, do not quote me on those technical terms.
Yeah, I think the major takeaway, which is important from the method that's being used, which it's pretty technical, but it would be a requirement. The setbacks wouldn't be like a suggestion; they would be baked into the upzoning proposal, which is of course important.
Yeah, and they're asking for the zoning commission to, I think, review both kind of separately in the same hearing, I think. I see someone with their hand raised. Is this a particular question around 1617 U Street? Randy Jones? You can go ahead and take yourself off of mute.
Yeah, not so much a question, but a clarification, and just appreciate y'all's help in emphasizing that setback. I think that's a key concession. But it kind of only, unfortunately partially addressed language that was in the comp code or the comp plan. So it's only on one side of the development, which is the V Street side. And the comprehensive plan specifically states that it should be on all sides facing lower density. So that would be, the three sides that aren't facing U Street. So I just wanted to make that point because I'm a party on this hearing that's coming up on Monday, and that'll be a key concession that I'd like OP to make. I don't have too many other oppositions to this development other than conforming to the comp plan, which was tirelessly worked on for 10 years.
And we definitely encourage you to raise your concerns at the zoning commission. They are ultimately the deciding factors in this. So thank you for joining us this evening and highlighting that.
I would, yes, thank you. I agree. It's the conversation continues. I would say that the setbacks are on two of the three sides you referenced, V and then the alley in between 16th and 17th. What it doesn't address is the 17th Street side of the development. So types of things that the community should, show up on Monday to talk about.
And I will just say too, for the 17th Street side, it's facing a road. So that's a little bit interesting. And I think OP did discuss that at economic development in terms of like the road width and kind of that. But again, I think we probably don't want to rehash all of this because we've had many discussions. So I would strongly encourage community members to register to testify or submit written testimony. I believe your deadline is Sunday at 4 p.m. So try to get that in tomorrow or again on Sunday by Sunday at 4 p.m. Sorry, Commissioner Hennigan, did you have anything else?
Yep, I just want to make sure there wasn't any other commissioner questions on 1617. Commissioner. Yeah, please.
Just wanted to add to what Chair Harris just said. You actually have until Monday up until 3 p.m. They do have a number. I don't have it in front of me. I can get that information. But so people that are worried if they don't get in by Saturday or Sunday or by tomorrow, they do have that day. You'd have to make a call to a certain individual at the office, but she can get you on. So just know that it's, if you're not in by Sunday, you could still have a chance to speak on Monday. Thank you.
Great. Our next meeting, so really nothing else, but at our next meeting, all of our meetings, we do a kind of community update for things that are happening. If you have a question about a property, would love to have you join us and ask. It is Thursday, January 18th at 6:30. This one's going to be all virtual. We plan to give community and neighborhood updates, including on 1617 U Street. The alcohol moratorium and where that stands after some recent movement. We're also going to be talking about the future of U Street and how we want to handle that as a committee this year. That's a wide-ranging, aspirational / talking about the arts overlay. It's been a long-standing agenda item for us. And then we have 2 draft resolutions that I would just put in a plug for. I'm not sure if we're going to vote on them because this is the first time we're talking about them. We often take 2 meetings, but one is on Green New Deal for housing. And the second is around public restroom facilities. So hope you can join us on January 18th at 6:30.
Thank you. Transportation, Commissioner Lakatos.
Thank you. We did not meet in December, so there are no action items to vote on. Our next meeting, which is next Wednesday, January 10th at 7, we're going to be discussing our plans for the year. As well as reviewing 2 resolutions on the U Street and Florida Avenue bus priority projects. If anyone is interested in joining the committee as a community member, you can reach out to me at 1B04@anc.dc.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Executive Council Member and Commissioner and Community Announcements, Office of the Council Member, Nicole. I think I saw you on. Yes, great.
Here. Hi, everyone. So just a few really brief updates. Performance oversight hearings are coming up. It's already time again. So just want to make the plug. It makes a really big difference when members of the community testify about their experience with various government agencies. You can testify live or you can submit written testimony. The dates of all of the hearings and how to sign up will be posted shortly. For all of the agencies under our committee, it'll be on our website. It'll be on kind of all the different committee websites. Dates should be finalized next week. So keep an eye out for that. And I would really encourage members of the community to testify. That's going to be shortly followed by budget already. I can't believe it. So keep in mind that there will be additional opportunities to testify before the council about your budget priorities coming up really soon. Just really quickly, we are very happy to see that some reporting that the mayor intends to fulfill the SNAP obligations to fund SNAP. We will be watching that very closely. So if anyone has questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us, but we're very happy to see some movement there. And then our next Brienne on your block is going to be an ANC 1B. That's our monthly community office hours. It's an opportunity to meet one-on-one with the council member. So it's not a town hall style. It is come sit down with a council member for 10 or 15 minutes, talk to her about your specific concerns, That could be policy issues, it could be constituent services assistance, really whatever you want to speak with her about. It'll be in ANC 1B. We're just finalizing the date and location now. We're like very close to locking it in for January. So that'll be on our social media and on our website very, very soon. I can send it around to the commissioners as well when that's finalized. So encourage people who want to meet with the council member to come out. And that's all I have, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions? I'm not seeing any little hands. Are there any community questions? Okay. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Nicole. And you can also put your information into the chat, and then we'll make sure everybody has that too in the community.
I'll do. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Office of the Mayor, Gerard. I saw him on earlier, but I do not see him unless he's off camera and not on my screen. I'm not seeing him in the audience either. That is unfortunate. I think we all had some questions for him. Okay, I think Cedric, if you have his information, if not, if a commissioner can post his information into the chat, so then the community can ask any questions, or commissioners, I think you all have his information. I think we may be receiving a new MOCR. I think Gerard's time is wrapped up or at the end. So expect kind of a new face, hopefully, in a bit. Commissioner announcements. Commissioners, are there any announcements? Commissioner Sycamore.
Hi, so just really quick, I just wanted to acknowledge the first homicide that we had here in the district at a hotel room. The victim was a 18-year-old up in Van Ness, and I wanted to let you know that it was her whole family is here in ANC 1B. So I just wanted to just acknowledge that and just keep that family. I'm not going to disclose who. If you could look at it yourself if you'd like, but just keep that in your thoughts and prayers and whatever way you like to acknowledge that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for flagging that for us, Commissioner Sycamore. I think this person will be in all of our thoughts, and very unfortunate that happened. Are there any other commissioner announcements? Okay, community announcements. Are there any community announcements? If you have an announcement, please raise your hand and we can take you off of mute, or you can also add it into the Q&A. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. New business. Are there any items for new business? Okay. Are there any further comments? Hearing none. And with that, I adjourn our meeting at 8:05 p.m. Happy New Year, everyone. Congratulations to our new exec board. If you have any questions about committees, please email Commissioner Handerhan or anyone else. But that's it. Thank you so much.